The Jared Dillian Show.
I'm Jared Dillian. This is the Jared Dillian Show. If you want to call to talk about your money, please call 844-305-7800. That's 844-305-7800. This is the Jared Dillian Show. You know, I've been poking at the FIRE people lately. We've talked about the FIRE movement before. These people, man, I'm telling you. I actually tweeted something out over the weekend, and it got like retweeted into FIRE Twitter, and it just got like 1,000 likes and went bananas. I can't emphasize enough how strongly I disagree with their philosophy. In fact, we are diametrically opposed. Complete polar opposites. Can't get any different. And they, man, these are not good people. They're really not. And this is a cult. The nighttime is the right time. Anyway, FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And actually, you know, let me just break that down. I mean, financial independence means different things to different people. You know, the way I look at it is that you're not dependent on anyone else for your well-being. And also, nobody is dependent on you. That's financial independence. The other part of that, retire early. Why do you want to retire early? I've come out a bunch of times against retiring early. I'm opposed to it. I don't think people should retire early. We've talked about this a bunch of times. Like, people retire at age 62. They take tiny amounts of Social Security. They end up on some kind of benefits, and they're bored, and they're miserable, and they drink, and they don't have stuff to do. It's not good. And a lot of people have all these dreams for retirement. They're like, oh, when I retire, I'm going to go to Greece, and I'm going to see my grandkids. They don't do any of that. They don't do any of it. They sit at home, and they got Fox News or MSNBC or whatever turned up to 11, and they just become angry and disconnected from the rest of the world. And they don't see people. They don't see friends. And that's retirement for a lot of people. That's got some really unhappy people out there. It's because they retired early. Work gives people purpose. Work gives me purpose. I love to work. And we'll get into this in some more detail. But basically how this works is, what it means is that you save as much money as you can from age 20 to 35. You save like 80% of your income. And we'll talk about how you do that. And then you have $1 million saved up. And then you live off of that for the rest of your life. Now, the one thing the FIRE people kind of figured out, which I give them credit for, is they kind of figured out the magic of compounding, and they did the math, and, you know, the math checks out. You know, if the stock market has these return assumptions, you know, if it does return 8, 10, 12% a year, then the math checks out, and you can do this, but you're living at a subsistence level. You are living in deprivation for 15 years so that you can live in deprivation for 50 years. And this is living your entire life in scarcity. Living your entire life in scarcity, you are constrained by your resources. I don't like to be constrained by my resources. I like to live my entire life in abundance. That is how you're supposed to do it. And I get I get some of these tweets from people. They're like, well, I am freed from the desire to accumulate material possessions. Don't need material possessions. You know, nobody is freed from the desire to accumulate material possessions. Material possessions bring you happiness. And these people live in tiny houses, like 200 square foot houses, and they defecate outside. And there's actually something called van life, where these people live out of a van. You know, I guess they work remotely, and they just drive around in a van. They get the van tricked out. And you know, they always say, well, I have the time to live my dreams. Yeah, you have the time to live your dreams, but you don't have the resources. You don't have the money to live your dreams. Dreams take money. I guess, you know, if you were a writer, you could live your dreams, but there's 24 hours in the day. You're asleep for 8. Are you going to write for 16 hours a day? What are you going to do with your time? What are you going to do with your time? I have dreams. I have a hobby. I'm a DJ. And I've spent, over the years, I've probably spent like $25,000 on music. I've probably spent like $25,000 on gear. Like dreams and hobbies, like these things take money. They take resources. You need money to have fun. You live in deprivation for 15 years so that you can live in deprivation for another 50 years. Not to mention, this is the worst part. So you got your $1 million, which is all in stocks. All in stocks, and the stock market is moving around 2, 3, 4% a day. And you're staring at your account. Because every time it goes down, you think to yourself, oh, maybe what if I have to go back to work? And that almost people just forget about this. Like this happened back in March. All these fire people were like, they were down like 35%. They're like, oh, what if I have to go back to work? And if you're 38 and you've been retired for 7 years, that's not going to look good on a resume. You are unemployable. You are no longer employable. And it's not going to look good if you tell them that you've been one of these fire people living in a tiny house, retired at age 31. It doesn't work. So the fire people say, well, I have no debt. Yeah, that's great. I don't have any debt either. But we focus on the revenue side, not the expense side. And the goal is to keep earning revenue. To work as long and as hard as you possibly can to earn money, to spend it on things that you enjoy. And my ethos is for you to become a productive person. You want to be a productive person. You want to contribute more to society than you consume. You want to be a net contributor to society. And the fire people don't want to consume anything. They're against consumption. It's like a religion. Like we can't buy stuff. They're against consumption. They don't like material possessions. And they don't want to produce anything. They don't want to consume anything, and they don't want to produce anything. They just want to sit there and exist like an eggplant doing nothing. And have we talked at all about how psychologically damaging it is to sit around and do nothing, where you lose track of time, you don't know what day it is, you don't know what time it is. It creates a lot of unhappiness, okay? One of the reasons I am so psychologically healthy is because I spend all my time working on things I find personally rewarding. I'm working all the time. I'm going to be working more now that I got into grad school. It's just even more to do. And I love it. I love being busy all the time. I don't want to retire. Why would you retire at age 35 and do nothing for 50 years? That's your plan. That's great. This is a poisonous philosophy that says you should work as little as possible and consume as little as possible. Consumption is great. I've said this a bunch of times. A lot of people, they have dreams, right? I want to buy a Porsche. Great. Save up money and buy the Porsche. I actually just have a friend that bought a Porsche. He was very smart about it. Like he wants to buy a new one someday. He wants like a $200,000 car. But he was smart, and he says, well, I'm gonna get a used one first. So he bought a Porsche that was 20 years old. He paid $13,000 for it. And that is the way to do it. And that's his dream. And he saved the money and he bought the car. If you want to buy a huge house, make a lot of money and buy the huge house. There is no guilt involved here. Work, achievement, self-esteem, and happiness. Consumption is good. Consumption is right. If buying things bring you happiness, then you should buy things. Just don't do it with debt. And make sure you are saving. Make sure you're saving 20% a year. That's all I ask. This is a cult. It's a weird cult where people sit around and do nothing. That is not what life is all about. Life is about work and achievement and self-esteem and happiness. You work, you accomplish things, you feel self-esteem and happiness. What makes you feel good about sitting around and watching your stocks go up and down? Exactly what kind of dreams are you pursuing? Are you going to fix bicycles all day? What is your plan? And it's not just the fire people. Everyone is in a big hurry to stop working. What is so bad about working? And maybe you're one of these people that hates their job. Great. Get another job. I don't want to hear you complaining about it. Just take action and get another job. Get another job that makes you happy. Or maybe you're one of these people that would be unhappy anywhere you worked. If you're one of these people that hates work, the problem is with you and not the work. You will be miserable in any job you take. Maybe it is best that you drop out of the labor force so you don't poison everyone else with your beliefs. These are very unhappy people, and they don't even know why they're unhappy. Fire is about earning exactly what you need and not $1 more. I am about earning way more than you need and having plenty left over to have fun. It's fun to have a nice car. It's fun to have a nice house. It's fun to travel. It's not fun to be stuck in your tiny house day after day. I am not in a hurry to retire. Theoretically, I could retire in 16 years and collect Social Security. Theoretically, I could retire now. I have the money. I could retire now. Why am I not retiring? Because there's lots more I have left to do. I'm going to be working well into my 70s. My biggest fear of retirement is sitting around. On the weekends, if I don't have something to do, I'm not happy. I like working and producing all the time. I can't stop working. I am deliriously happy, and I want everyone else to be happy too. I'm Jared Dillian. This is The Jared Dillian Show.
The Jared Dillian Show.